When my boss told me to take some time off, I wasn't sure if it was a suggestion or a polite way of saying you're burning out, and it's showing. It was late May, and the office air felt heavy with the smell of stale coffee and overworked printers. I'd been clocking 60-hour weeks at the marketing agency in Boston, churning out campaign after campaign, barely noticing the sunshine outside. My friends had stopped inviting me to weekend outings because they already knew I'd say I was too busy. That night, I went home to my small apartment, sat on the couch, and stared at my phone. My vacation days had been collecting dust for years. I opened a browser and typed, "last-minute beach vacations." 3 days later, I was boarding a flight to Key West, Florida, with a carry-on bag, a sun hat, and no real plan. The moment I stepped off the plane, the warm breeze hit me like an exhale I'd been holding in for months. The scent of salt water mixed with the distant sound of steel drums, and for the first time in ages, I felt my shoulders drop from my ears. I checked into a small family run and painted in cheerful shades of yellow and turquoise. My room had a balcony that overlooked the ocean, where the waves glimmered under the late afternoon sun. That first evening, I walked barefoot along the shoreline until the sky melted into shades of orange and purple. I wasn't thinking about deadlines or client meetings, just the sound of the surf and the feel of wet sand beneath my feet. The next morning, I decided to explore. The town was alive with color, bright storefronts selling seashell jewelry, pastel-painted houses with wide porches, and bicycles propped against palm trees. I wandered to a wooden pier at the far end of the beach. A man was leaning on the railing, aiming a camera at the horizon. He looked about my age, wearing a faded baseball cap and a white shirt rolled at the sleeves. "You just missed it," he said when he noticed me. "Missed what?" "The green flash. Happens just as the sun dips below the horizon. Hard to catch on camera, but worth seeing in person." His name was Ben Carter, a marine biologist who split his time between Florida and the Caribbean, studying coral reefs. We ended up talking for over an hour about ocean conservation, travel, and the quirks of living in small coastal towns. Before I left, he said, "If you want to see something special, meet me at the docks tomorrow morning." The next day, I found Ben at the marina, standing beside a modest research boat. He handed me a life jacket. "We're heading to a reef about 30 minutes offshore," he said. "Most tourists never see this one." The ride was exhilarating, the wind whipping through my hair, the sunlight glittering on the waves. When we reached the reef, I peered over the side and gasped. The water was so clear I could see schools of brightly colored fish weaving between corals. Ben explained the fragile state of the reef, how climate change and pollution threatened it. He handed me a pair of snorkeling goggles. "Go take a look for yourself." The underwater world was mesmerizing. Flashes of blue, yellow, and orange fish darting past, the slow sway of sea fans in the current. It felt like stepping into another planet. Over the next few days, Ben introduced me to parts of Key West most visitors never see. Quiet mangrove trails, tucked-away cafes where locals gathered, a tiny art gallery that doubled as a marine conservation fundraiser. But it wasn't just about sightseeing. I started helping him catalog photos of marine life for his research, learning to identify species and log their locations. The work was strangely calming, giving me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. One evening, over conch fritters at a beachside shack, he asked, "Do you like your job back home?" I hesitated. "I used to. Lately, I'm not sure." "Maybe you're just ready for something new," he said. On my 5th day, the weather turned. Dark clouds rolled in, and the ocean grew restless. Ben got a call from a colleague. A storm surge had damaged part of a reef restoration site. "Want to help?" he asked. We spent the day on the boat in choppy waters, delivering equipment and assisting divers. I wasn't much use in the water, but I helped secure gear, kept records, and made endless runs for coffee. By the time we got back to shore, I was soaked, exhausted, and strangely exhilarated. That night, lying in bed, I realized I hadn't once thought about work emails or pending projects. My mind was full of images of the reef, the storm, and the people working tirelessly to protect it. It struck me. I'd come here to escape my life, but maybe I'd stumbled onto a glimpse of the life I actually wanted. On my last day, Ben handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo. The reef, teeming with fish, sunlight streaming through the water. On the back he'd written, "For when you need a reminder of what's out there. And if you ever want to get your hands wet again, we could always use volunteers." I promised I'd think about it. Boston felt different when I returned. The office looked the same, but I noticed how pale everyone's faces were under fluorescent lights, how tense the air felt. For 2 weeks, I went through the motions. But the photo sat on my desk, and every time I looked at it, I felt the ocean calling. I didn't quit my job overnight, but I started planning. I used my weekends to take online courses in environmental communication. I saved money. 6 months later, I arranged to take a 3-month leave of absence to volunteer with Ben's team. When I stepped back onto that pier in Key West, Ben grinned. "Back for another tan?" I laughed. "Back for something bigger." It's been 3 years since that first trip. My life now is a blend of freelance marketing work and marine conservation projects. I still spend part of every year in Key West, working with Ben's team to protect the reefs. That vacation gave me more than a tan. It gave me direction, friendship, and a sense of purpose I didn't even know I was missing. Sometimes you book a trip to get away from your life. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find the life you've been looking for.